All right, welcome to another episode of Data Tech Talk. But today, this is a founder series. So, I've got a very exciting founder with me today from Transformania, the CEO of Transformania, Danny Levinson. Welcome to the show.
Hello, good to have you on my computer screen, and it's good to see you.
It's so good to see you, Danny. We've had some pretty interesting discussions in the last offline catch-ups, so I'm really excited about today. Just so you know, audience, Danny is a seasoned entrepreneur, and he has had several exits in his lifetime. So I would love to know, Danny, a little bit about your background, how you came to be where you are today. You know, the different journeys that you took in terms of the different institutions or organizations that you were a part of and created, for example, different solutions as well. And finally, what brought you to Transformania as well.
Excellent. Yeah, sure. So I'm American, but I lived in Asia for over 20 years. Went to Asia shortly after I graduated from undergrad and lived in Beijing. Still have a home in Beijing, still have a car in Beijing. Beijing is still considered my home. And I also lived in Shanghai for a while and Hong Kong. And when I arrived in China, in my very early 20s, I was looking for a job, and I got a job running sales as a sales manager at a media intelligence company. So what we were doing was we were reading hundreds and hundreds of Chinese newspapers and magazines. This was back before the internet in the mid 90s. And we were taking all that data, compiling it, translating some of it, analyzing it, and sending it back out to our clients. Our clients included PR agencies, multinationals, embassies, and foreign governments. And so that's how I got into the data field. And quickly thereafter, as a sales manager, I was looking at opportunities of things to sell. And we were nearing the late 90s, around 1998, 1999. And at my company in particular, I saw the opportunity to sell what we called back then an intranet. Today we would use VPNs or even SaaS applications in place of an intranet. But I saw an opportunity to build an intranet to give clients access to our data. And I had absolutely no programming chops, no programming skills whatsoever. But my boss said, listen, you're in charge of this project. If you can build it and sell it, that's fantastic. And so I spent the next almost 2 years building that and then selling it to clients. And then actually learning along the way first HTML, then Perl, then C++, and then later in the years, PHP and Python. Really understanding both the front end of development and also the back end server side stuff. Left that company, ended up forming another data company, sold that to a U.S. NASDAQ listed company back in 2010, started up another business, sold that to an Aussie ASX listed company. Along the way, also did another exit for a content and data news business that I was running. But all along, always trying to create new things. I started as a sales guy. I'm also a developer, and so trying to put those two things together to try to fix problems that clients have. Yeah. And so late last year, I was looking around for something new to do. My earnout had ended at the ASX company, and Matt Siegel, who's the founder of Transformania, he was also the one of the board members at an earlier company, a NASDAQ listed company called Vocus that had acquired my Beijing business many years ago. He said, listen, man, I'm building this new business. It's called Transformania, and I need someone to help run it. And I was living in Asia at the time. I was living in Hong Kong, and I had really had little aspiration to come back. But the opportunity was enormous. And when I looked at what Matt had created and I looked at the market opportunity, it blew my mind. Nothing like this had ever been done before. People had tried, they had failed, but Matt had succeeded in building this fantastic application for formatting data. And that's what got me to come back. And
Is
so fast forward 10 months and here I am.
is Matt like a technical co-founder?
Oh yeah, so Matt has Matt wears many hats. Matt has a great background in building and exiting very large companies, sometimes for $500 million. He's a great marketer. He's a great coder. He doesn't have a PhD in artificial intelligence, yet what he's created along with our development team is fantastic and put up against any other type of AI product that tries to even come near what we're doing. It's phenomenal. And so I think it just goes to show that, you put enough PhDs in a room and you'll have a great analytic report or a great study of something, but you take someone who really has the programming and coding chops and really likes to get their hands dirty, and they'll actually be able to create something that people can use. And so yeah, so Matt's a great, he's much more than just the technical co-founder. He's also the chairman of our company. And I'm joined here by Darren Stewart, our COO, who was formerly the CEO of Trax, which then was sold to Talk Walker, and he also has a great background in data and in management of very large companies.
That's awesome. That's a great story. But Danny, I just wanted to know about all the exits that you have had so far. So, what kind of exits were they? Like, was it acquired or was it, was it something else?
Sure. So they were all trade sales, and I'm at the point now where I'm also an investor and I sit on boards of other companies, and there's a few different ways you can exit. Trade sale in my mind is always going to be the easiest. A lot of folks look at IPOs. IPOs are great as well. I've never personally done an IPO, though I've worked for companies that have. The a trade sale works very well when you have an acquirer who can offer not only a great immediate exit to the founders and investors, but especially for the management team of the acquired company, a great earnout, right? And so finding that right mix is often difficult. When I was at Isentia, Isentia was a company that in 3 years ago acquired my Shanghai business. Isentia is an ASX listed company. They were very acquisitive. And so they acquired, let's see, while I was there, in the 2.5 years I was there, we did 2 deals in Korea. We finalized a deal in Hong Kong. We did a few other deals across Southeast Asia. A very acquisitive company. And the companies that we bought, for example, were run by entrepreneurs. Some of them had never even raised capital. They, from day one, because they're in the B2B sector, they were able to generate revenue and then quickly thereafter generate profit. It's hard sometimes to know when to exit. But in my case, for example, the company that I sold 10 years ago, the writing on the wall was that I saw much bigger companies, both in China and outside of China, coming into the market. And I saw that the only way I was going to be able to compete was to raise a lot of financing and spend a good deal amount of time to grow the business over the next 18 to 36 months, or to sell the business. And I definitely made the right choice to sell the business because, a dollar today, first of all, is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. I can do a lot more with that today than, what I'm expecting or forecasting for the future that I could sell at. And also the nature of life is just, there's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know. And so understanding the lay of the land now and understanding, the extent to which you realistically can grow on your own, even with investment, is, I think, very important for founders to understand. And even today, I talk with lots of companies who, they're run by founders. They might have, be slightly profitable or nearing profitability. And they tell me absolutely no way, I'm never going to sell, or I'm not going to sell. That to me is, I had that attitude maybe 16, 17 years ago, but I think I've matured to the point where I'm always open to a discussion, and everything always has a price. And to cut yourself off at the very early stage and saying, no, zero, you might think it's playing hard to get, but it also shows a little lack of unrealistic expectations, because sometimes, quite often, the acquirer coming into the market has already done their due diligence. They've already talked to your competitors. They maybe even done due diligence on 3 or 4 of your competitors and know much better than you do about their capabilities, what their revenue looks like, their potential problems and their potential strengths. And for you to cut them off so quick, sometimes gives a bad taste in the mouth of a potential acquirer. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but yeah, that's my thinking on exiting and on working with trade sales.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like, I think you're spot on with a lot of the observations that you've done in your several different exits that you've done in your career journey. And I was also wondering, like, there are a lot of founders today who are watching this show, and what would you tell to them? What is the key thing that you need to look out for when you're looking at exiting your company? Or is there any pitfall that you should avoid or actively stay away from certain kinds of investors or certain kinds of acquirers? What would your recommendation be?
Yeah, so it really differs on the company and your sector, right? So, um, having run businesses in Asia, I know that when especially European or American companies come in, as smart and intelligent as they think they are, and as smart as intelligent as their lawyers in the U.S. or Europe or even accounting firms think they are, they really don't understand the market, right? Take Southeast Asia, for example. Singapore is very different than Malaysia. Malaysia very different than Indonesia. But of course, not of course, but unfortunately, sometimes investors from outside the region, even from China looking at Southeast Asia, see it all as one big piece, right? They don't see the separate markets. And take Indonesia, for example. Indonesia has so many different little markets within it because it's such a huge country. So, when looking at what to think about in those type of situations, I always like to think about, the type of acquirer that's going to really gain from buying my business. So, a lot of founders don't think of themselves as salespeople. They might think of themselves as a technical co-founder. They might think of themselves as an artist or a designer. But you're really selling. You're always selling. You're always selling. And the failure to understand, comprehend, and digest that very, very important point means that you won't get far. I'm thinking about one company that I'm involved in where about 2 years ago, the founder of the company, so I'm an investor, I'm on their board. The founder was talking to a possible buyer for the business.
Yeah.
And the founder told the buyer, after you buy my company, I don't want to be part of the business anymore. I want to get out. Now, of course, that's probably in the minds of a lot of founders when they sell the business, that they want to get out. And in fact, in some acquisitions, maybe the buyer doesn't want the founder around anymore. But I think coming out and being so bold to say that at the beginning was a very bad strategic move for that founder. And sure enough, I heard back a few months later that the reason they stepped back was because that CEO, that founder, was going to leave the business. Truth be told, I know the CEO would have stayed around for another 1, 2, or even 3 years, but they got very, I guess, anxious and said the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it caused a bad taste in the person's mouth. So again, remember you're selling. You know, it sounds obvious that you're selling a business, but few people actually really digest that you're selling the business. You want to, you know, have clean books. You want to be able to have somebody come in and take a look and have everything sparkling clean, you know, when you go through the due diligence process. And ultimately you want to, you know, put a good face on the business, because they don't want to see that you're going down, you know, unless it's a distressed debt investor or buyer. They want to make sure that, you know, that there are good things coming when they buy the business. So again, a lot of these things are really obvious. It's just, you know, few people at the early stage of running a company can actually digest and incorporate that thinking into what they do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny, for that. That's very, very insightful, and I'm sure the founders who are watching will understand the dynamics that happens and, you know, explore even further. I do have a few last questions before we do have to end our show. The first one being, if we go back to Transformania, the kind of solutions that Transformania is providing and this kind of industry that Transformania is catering to, could you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. Sure. So here at Transformania, it's quite simple. We flag, format, and enhance user data. And what that means is we supercharge your personalization at scale. And we focus on names at this point. So we format, fix, and enhance the contact data in your CRM database, in your Excel spreadsheet, and everywhere else that you can securely hold your critical assets. So there's a lot of companies out there that clean data. But none do exactly what we do. What they might do is they'll figure out if the email address is valid. They'll figure out the postal address and make sure that that's clean. But actually focusing on names has been tried before, but those companies have failed because it's extremely, extremely complicated. It's very difficult. You know, coming from China, I know that in China, when you deal with Chinese language, when you deal with the characters, it's quite simple to figure out if, when you look at a name, is that person a male or a female? It's quite simple to figure out by looking at Chinese characters, what's the surname and what's the given name. But when you transfer that into Pinyin or Romanize it, it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult to figure out if that name, like let's say Yao Ming, famous NBA star, is Yao his family name, his last name, or is Ming his given name, his first name. So, you know, understanding that and understanding if Yao Ming is a male or a female is very important. And that's what we do. We figure that stuff out. You know, looking at, you know, like let's say next to China, India, you know, a lot of Indians, when they work with Western countries or companies or even among themselves, let's say there's a guy named Paul, P-A-U-L. Well, if his name is Paul, it's probably a short name, a nickname for Iqbal, right? And Iqbal also has another nickname, Ike. So if I see a guy's name I-K-E, Ike, here in America, I'll probably think, just at first glance, maybe it's short for Eisenhower. We used to have a president in the U.S. named Dwight Eisenhower, and his nickname was Ike. But in fact, it's not Eisenhower. His name is Iqbal. And so again, at Transformania, we understand the name, we format it, and we give it back to clients so they can easily use that data. Ultimately, in the marketing space, it's all about return on investment. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the long-term value of somebody in your database, you know, let's say that you're an organization that charges, you know, X amount of dollars a year and tries to top on some other type of fees and services on top of that. Let's say that the long-term value of your client, of your user, is $1,000. Well, there have been a lot of studies out there that have shown an impressive one, especially by Stanford Graduate Business School, that show that by correctly personalizing the email you send to somebody with their name in the subject line, you can get over 20% ROI just by sending them that email with their name, their correct name, in the subject line. So if you look at it at $1,000 for the long-term value of that client, of that user, and you add on another, let's say 10 to be let's say even 5%, just to be very conservative. So if I can add on another $50 to the value of that user in my database, and I'm only going to charge you, a few pennies for that, that's a fantastic thing to do, right? I'm going to supercharge the value of the users in my database by correctly identifying them, by correctly naming them. And everybody loves the sound of their own name, right? On LinkedIn, my name is Daniel, but in fact, nobody calls me Daniel. Everyone calls me Danny. And I know if I got an email addressed to "Hi Daniel," I know that person doesn't know me, right?
Yeah.
I know that they have no prior relationship with me. And I probably delete the email. But if it says, "Hey Danny," I think, oh, hey, this guy knows me, this gal knows me. Let me see what they have to say. And again, that's where on the marketing side, there's a tremendous value in what we're doing. And also, going back to Iqbal and Chinese names and Western names, it's incredibly difficult to get this right. But we have a fantastic product. And in our beta test already, we're showing a fantastic return on investment for our beta testers.
Amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine because I have had so many with the double M in my name as well.
Right.
So people call me Shama and then Shama. What am I exactly? But we'll talk more about that. What I would love to know before we end the show is one, maybe in a very brief way, how would founders look for their first bit of traction? So there are a lot of B2B SaaS company founders who are watching the show today. There are a lot of B2C as well. How would they look for the first, let's say, first 100 customers? What would be
Yeah.
the best?
So I wish that there was a science to it, right? And there's a lot of YouTube videos that I've watched. I've gone to seminars, I've gone to conferences. People have talked about it. There's been a lot of analysis about it. To some extent, there's a little bit of science, but in a lot of ways, it's an art. And unfortunately, it's an art because every product is different. Timing of the launch of the product is different all the time. The clientele are always going to be slightly different. Pricing is going to be different. And so I wish that there was a panacea or a medication that could solve all those type of problems to get people to understand when they've reached that, when they start going up that hockey stick, right? When they start going up, that they could know that. Sometimes it takes a while to get good product market fit. I've seen that some very large companies started by spending upwards of 2 years to get that product market fit. And so what I think that you have to do, and what we're doing at Transformania, give you an example of what we're doing to get to that point, is we're working with our beta testers. We're figuring out, first of all, what drives them to use our service, right? Why are they using the service? Number two is, what are the challenges when they use our service, right? What are the problems? What can we smooth over to make using our service much easier? And number three, which is always tough, is pricing, right? We might have the best product in the world, but if it's priced way too high, out of the budgets of everybody, no one's going to buy it. And so getting that pricing right is also important. And I wish I had an answer to that, what was a scientific answer. But again, it's a little bit of art. It's a little bit of looking at what maybe related products are costing, looking at their features, trying to figure out what somebody with a limited budget might be able to spend, somebody with a big budget might be able to spend, somebody with an annual budget, right? So if you do annual budgets, then maybe Q4 the year before is the only time you can really sell to them, right? So companies that are on a calendar year, fiscal year, right now is when we should be selling to them, right? End of December is when they have to close their books. And so we have to make sure that we sell to them right now in order to get into their budgets for next year. So it's there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And it really means, having the wherewithal to talk to your users. And unfortunately, again, going back to the founder part, you are the salesperson. You should not be hiring a sales. If you're a B2B company and you're pretty small, you don't need a salesperson until you get a few clients. The CEO or maybe the COO, they are the salesperson. they're the ones out there talking with the clients at first. Once you understand what the clients need and some of the ways that you can sell, then you go out and you hire a salesperson.
Absolutely, Danny, this was fantastic. And I'm sure so many takeaways from this. I was just making notes as well while I was hearing you. But at the same time, I want to thank you for coming today on our episode. And for those of you who would want to contact you, what's the best way to get you?
Yeah, great. So I'm off most social media, but I am on LinkedIn. And you can also, most importantly, visit us at Transformania. So transformania.com. Our name is all about transforming data. That's where the name comes from. So transformania.com, transformania.com.
Awesome. Guys, be sure to check out the website. It's a lot of fun, but also very, very informative. So I want to end the show here today. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.